Yeah, great stuff. Thanks. So one last presentation. Surprise to Steve, I think, mostly. This is meant to be 10 years in 10 minutes, but it's going to be a bit more like 10 seconds, I think. I have a clicker. There it is. So just a little bit about the, I suppose, the governance around LINX Manchester at the moment. There is a tiny bit of it. There was a lot less. And then I was going to go into some gratuitous nostalgia for you all to make you laugh, hopefully. Talk a bit about the future, and then if there is any seconds left for questions, we'll go into that. 10 years ago, we were in a very different place here. I mean, the trams were a different colour in Manchester. There wasn't any Greater Manchester mayor. We were still part of the European Union. There was a coalition government. I mean, does anyone remember any of these things? LINX only ran 2 networks. LON 1 and LON 2. And they weren't even called that. I mean, they were still named after various vendors, I think, to be honest. And so well, I've got a special slide for you at the end. So we were in this situation where it was a bit scary. This was the first time LINX was even thinking about going out and building a network in another city outside of London. Terrifying. They even thought, should we change the name of LINX? I mean, possibly. So about a year after the exchange was launched, which is a story in of itself, the steering committee was formed. And this was designed really as a way to help guide LINX in their foray outside of London. And we've been meeting very regularly for about 9 years. The chairs were volunteered at some point, and I have absolutely no idea when this was, but apparently I am one. So I became the vice chair at some point. Matt Hattersley's been the chair since day dot, I think. Recent discussions, and this is actually part of, I think, mostly to do with me sat at home bored during the pandemic, thinking about whether or not we still needed the steering committee, because in recent, like the last couple of years, LINX have been investing money in LINX Manchester. It's got new equipment. It has new POPs. It literally is an exchange that stands on its own, which is really, really great to see. Do we still need this steering committee? In general, so we had a few talks about this. We sat down and we realised a few things. We didn't really, we didn't know how the chairs came to be. We didn't really have any governance. But on the flip side, as a committee, we were still helping LINX. They were still happy to speak with us and get our opinions. We hadn't created any camels, and Jackie Weaver was nowhere to be seen. So, should we just carry on? It sounds like a good thing, but we did need to think about actually. There is some governance in need here. There we go. So, version 2, steering committee version 2. Let's see how it goes. We've done some very simple things. We've enforced some term limits for the chairs. Very important there. That basically means that both me and Matt are going to have to stand down pretty much immediately. I've already told Matt 3 times he can't do it yet. But he's pretty much got one foot out the door, so we're going to have an election for the chair, and then I will have to stand down. We've reduced the meeting schedule. I mean, we were doing every other odd month. I think it's now down to a minimum of 2 meetings a year. I'm really happy with that because I don't think that this necessarily is needed. I think we can do a lot of things by email and just, hey, what do you think of this steering committee? Things like conflicts of interest need to be registered. We're going to have a proper list of members, which has been a bit woolly up until this date. And I say small m members, steering committee members. We've decided that we needed to figure out what a quorum meant. So effectively, if we've got a limit of 20 steering committee members, a quorum is 25% of them, including one of the chairs. Excuse me. So that's really simple. I guess it was a bit of a cry to help. If you would like to come and join the steering committee, please do. We're going to need a few more folks that are regularly engaged, who know about the Manchester market, the data centres, where the networks are. Just be a good evangelist. I mean, that's all it is, really. It's not a lot of your time. Anyway, so, a bit more fun, gratuitous nostalgia. I went digging around Twitter. So all of you may be rightly terrified that there may be pictures of you that turn up from 10 years ago. And straight away, this was actually April 2012. We had a launch event for LINX Manchester, then called LINX Manchester, in the BBC's BBC's it was newish then, I suppose, new Media City offices over in Salford, which was a great place to launch LINX Manchester, I have to say. Anyway, it was actually very nice. It was really good fun. We had lots of presentations there. I mean, you'll recognise some of the folks. There's a few of them here today. I think some of them have absconded in recent years, actually, but no less. And somehow, I think it was quite impressive that of all of the tweets that were made out of that day, none of the LINX staff managed to get themselves photographed. Very impressive. What was really funny was no one liked the name LINX Manchester. There was so many arguments and debates over this, but I actually have to really thank. This is a tweet by Daniel Faraday Foster. It was then Daniel Foster, or Daniel Kieran Foster, I think, at the time, who was getting wound up by one of our colleagues, Josh, who kept deciding that it should be called Minx, so he was going to call it Minx forever and a day. Josh is a very good troll at winding people up, so it was good fun. But shout out to the as yet unnamed person who was on our mailing list after the launch event saying how important it was that we get the naming right. It's a bit late. Anyway, I dug up some other things. This was from June 2012, just as the first 2 member ports had gone live. And this is, I believe, the first inter-member peering traffic that was ever set up across LINX Manchester between what was then Melbourne server hosting, 39451, and Keycom, 25178. So special thanks to Alan Dunn for keeping a hold of all of these emails and hoarding them, because we now have this on record, I think, that was the first peers. Unfortunately, Keycom have since left the LINX Manchester LAN, and it was all cut out, and I had to remind someone that, by the way, this was kind of important historically. And of course, Melbourne got acquired by IMART some time ago, so that's all been rolled out. There was some IPv6 too. Yes, I did, finally. I was 8 days later, I'd finally finished configuring the IPv6. So I was definitely rushing to be the first peer across the LAN, so not excited in the slightest. We had another meeting. It was quite strange. It was just about 6 months after the launch event. We had another meeting at the NDDA, or it was next door to the NDDA, and very much everyone was very excited about 10 gig, hashtag 10 gig, 10 gig everywhere. It was really quite a strange day. But there were some other lovely little landmarks that people have been tweeting about, and this is really nice to just kind of dig up now and say, look, we just passed 5 gigabits per second after 18 months. Look at the point when TalkTalk joined the LAN and the uptick in traffic. It was, there was a lot of excitement over this, and there was a bit more excitement about other things from other people who decided that they could see me wearing the same shirt and had to tweet about it. So I promise I don't have a peering uniform, but for the life of me, I can't remember why Thomas was tweeting this stuff. Bit of growth. We got some BiDi. We actually managed to, I think, kind of convince. I swear we haven't created any camels as part of the steering committee, but we did convince LINX that BiDi was a really good idea. So that was kind of introduced in Manchester first and foremost. There was lots more traffic turning up. There's actually some notes there, I think, from around about 2014, 2015, where we had 62 members, 67 connected ports. Really good fun. Hit 30 gigabit per second mark in about 2016. So things were ramping up pretty quickly. We had a 5-year anniversary. So obviously 5 years ago, near enough. Now I was stood up here in this very room at LINX98, which I think was not long after the bomb went off at the MEN Arena. So that was a little bit of a strange coincidence. But yeah, we had another little LINX Manchester meeting. Does anyone remember us doing those as separate things? Like one of the first things I argued against in the steering committee was no, let's just bring the LINX meeting up to Manchester. It's a lot better. But as we get into the later years, actually, things ticked up. And this was really why I started thinking, is the steering committee still important? Because years 7, 8, and 9, we're starting to look like a more mature IXP. We're getting investments into new data centers, bringing new POPs on board. It was Teledata was the most recent one, just before the pandemic, a little bit earlier. And then we obviously now we're not running on hand-me-down hardware from LON2, so we're not using Extreme Gear anymore. We're using the same edge core IP Infusion stuff that's there on LON 2. And that, really, really happy to see that. That's great. Late 2021, we're seeing this massive uptick in traffic. Within a month or so of one another, we went straight from 200 gig to 250 gig. I mean, this is incredible, considering 2016 we were at 30. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. It has been nostalgic, actually, thinking about through all of this and thinking, how do you keep caring about it? But to be honest, it's now got to the point where it's fledged into this really useful local internet exchange point. And doing that in the United Kingdom with such an ingrained membership in London has been quite impressive, I think. So the future, probably a little bit of it. I think most of this has been mentioned by Richard and Curtis, to be honest. We're obviously thinking about this Equinix MA5 build. It's kind of funny that we had so many discussions in the steering committee about going into Equinix MA2, and it's almost like it was prescient that everyone knew it was going to get closed down at some point. So it's kind of a good job we didn't do that, I suppose. With definitely other plans afoot around co-location providers in Manchester region. I'm sure there are. I don't think they've spoken up yet, but there's probably a lot more to come just after this Equinix MA5 stuff. So 400 gig. I might be being totally ambitious here, but if you have plans for 400 gig ports in Manchester, tell LINX as soon as you can, because they tell us it's possible. So let's do that. As I've said before, we need a few more good souls in the steering committee. That'd be really good to have. I'm loving the fact that the value of peering, even in the new charging scheme from January, the value of peering here is such that we're at 66% the cost of LON 2 and nearly a third the cost of LON 1 for the same service. And there's a lot of peers here for you to get to, so it's starting to look like exceptional value, and long may that continue. So, just to finish you off here with a beer bomb, do we still need LON 2? It's already come up once today already. I was like, ah, damn it, how dare you? But yeah, do we still need it? I genuinely do wonder. Anyway, questions? Thank you.
Any questions for Tom? Are we all done?
So I kind of get all this governance stuff, but it's like culture, right? So right now we've got a culture that works. Why do we want to change it? Just we'll do some handshake. You'll be good. We'll let Matt Harsley kind of disappear, and life goes on, as opposed to all this kind of painful governance malarkey that I'm not sure we need.
Well, I had the same opinion. That's where I started from. I said, I don't think we need this committee any longer.
Cool. Well, I'm not saying we don't need the committee. I mean, but maybe the committee just, it's kind of like break glass for emergencies, and you don on your Avengers suit, and I'll come as the Hulk. It's kind of that sort of thinking, which is what happens quite often in the IXP industry.
Part of it a little bit was, it's Matt who's trying to get his foot out there.
Hey, Matt!
Part of it was obviously, I was coming up to my 10-year anniversary, and almost annually I was standing up saying, hey, does anyone want a chair? And it's, it is. And it was a little difficult. So the rules are more to keep it fresh than be these ironclad things that are restrictive. That was the idea anyway. We're going to have to see if that's how it pans out in the end.
You can't leave. I'm sorry.
I've told him that a number of times. He's not allowed to go.
Simon from the LPC. So as Matt experiences Hotel California, for the bit of the nostalgia emails, please could you print those off and we'll have a signing ceremony. I'll go and get Al, and we'll have them framed somewhere and maybe put them next to the first router. I don't know, something like that. That'd be quite fun.
We've done something along the lines of a redundant array of independent mailboxes to make sure that they are spread wide across as many storage networks as possible.
Yeah, but I was thinking more just like a formalised plaque, and we could have them framed properly and all that lot. I just think it'd be quite fun.
Well, we'll come back and look at that in 20 years old.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
No problem. Thanks very much. Cheers.